Hey guys, Kelade here. So Blizzard has released some new information about patch 8.3 and the new corruption system that comes alongside with it, which will serve as a full replacement for the current Warforged and Titanforged system that we have grown accustomed to. So when 8.3 and Season 4 comes out, all of the new loot that's going to drop from Mythic Plus, PvP, and the new 12 boss raid will only be able to be corrupted and will no longer be able to Warforge and Titanforge. Now, any gear previous to 8.3, right, so gear from the Eternal Palace and previously, those of course can still Warforge and Titanforge up to the current live eye level cap of 455. So anything before 8.3 will adhere to the old rules. Anything that comes after it will only be able to be corrupted. Now, we can assume that the gear that can be corrupted are the same type of gear that can be Warforged and Titanforged, right? So we can assume that Azra pieces most likely won't be corrupted. It's hard to tell because you can't really get Azra pieces to be corrupted on the PTR right now. The other caveat I will say is I personally can't get a weapon to be corrupted on the PTR, but I have seen somebody link a weapon that was corrupted. Now, obviously, there's things you can do with links that can change it. So I think the verdict on weapons, at least, is still out on whether or not it can be corrupted. So just FYI on that. Hopefully it can't actually, because there's going to be a lot of layers of RNG, as we'll see, regarding the corruption system, right? But, so what actually happens when an item gets corrupted, right? Now, when an item gets corrupted, kind of two things happen to it, right? One is you get one beneficial effect and one negative effect. Now, the negative effect is always going to be plus corruption, and we'll get to what the corruption means in a second. The beneficial effect can range from a variety of things. Now, the best one for us, especially as warriors, is critical damage, right? The best right now that you can roll on the PTR is a whopping 7% critical damage. Now, that's a one piece of gear. In comparison, right, the benthic boots, which are super OP, that only give you 3% critical damage, right? Imagine you can get 7%, and imagine it on all the pieces that you can possibly roll corruption on, right? Basically, everything on the right side of your character here, and then bracers and cloak, and maybe weapons, right? Potentially. Now, you're not going to wear corruption gear on everything slot, but, right, the potential is pretty big, right? And it stacks too, right? So the other stats that you can get is percent increases to all of your secondary stats. So crit, haste, mastery, verse. Right now, the highest you can get on that is 4%. Now, of course, whenever you get more geared, stuff like percentage scaling is going to be better. But currently, at my character, which basically is max geared, right, for currently what's live, actually getting the 4% crit is worse than a socket, right? The amount of crit that I get is like 44 crit from this 4%. Whereas obviously if I have a socket, I can put a 50 crit gem in there. So right now, actually, some of this corrupted stuff might not be better than some of the socket gear you have. So just heads up on that, that this will scale, right? Especially because this is going to be the end of the expansion. As you fully gear out towards the end, you know, the percentages will get even better, right? And then in regards to these DPS ones, if you guys care, there's some non-DPS ones like avoidance, health regen, heal, receive, increase, leech, reduction from dots, and then this flash of clarity spell that reduces the cooldown of your next 3 spells cast by 2 seconds. Doesn't really matter for us that much. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Reducing any of our abilities by 2 seconds, whatever, right? It's not like Rampage is on a cooldown anyways. Maybe if it procs while you use execute, it could be good, but it's whatever. So another thing to note, it does seem like the tertiary stuff that we used to get with Warforging and Titanforging, which includes sockets, avoidance, leech, and speed, those can no longer be found on your gear, right? All this corrupted stuff I've gotten, I don't have any of those tertiary stats, no sockets, right? Which is kind of what I mentioned about, you know, the current crit is not better than sockets. So, you know, maybe you don't just instantly put on all the corruption gear, right? Now, another reason why you don't instantly just put on all of your corruption gear is depending on the amount of corruption that you get, you're going to get all these different debuffs that will negatively affect your character. Right now, putting on any piece of corruption gear, just one piece, will give you this thing called grasping tendrils, which when you take damage has a chance to slow your movement speed, and then this scales depending on your corruption. Now, don't worry about any of the current corruption values and what values are going to proc which thing, right? Just know that generally what they are, because Blizzard has even said themselves that the corruption values are going to change, and they kind of have to. Right now, the scaling for how much corruption you get from a few items is absolutely insane, right? Like, you don't even want to wear 2 almost, right? So just know that right now, don't worry about the actual numbers of how much corruption, just worry about what's actually possible, right? Next level of corruption is this thing called Corrupted Zone. Your spells and abilities have a chance to create a corrupted zone at your location, dealing shadow damage to you every 2 seconds. The size and damage of the corrupted zone increases with higher corruption. Now, obviously, I put on like full corruption gear and I hit something that where it damaged myself. It basically 2-shots you or 1-shots you if you have lower HP, and the cloud covers the entire room. So this is also one of the mechanics where it just makes sure that you don't have too much corruption. It is annoying to deal with because obviously if you proc it right where you're standing as melee, then you're gonna have to get out of it. I feel like ranged aren't as hurt as much by this, especially on fights where like your actual position doesn't matter. Really what it seems like is, in the beginning at least, like you'll have a grasping of tendrils, fine, but you don't really want to hit corrupted zone, right? Now, even if you do hit a corrupted zone, you definitely don't want to hit the next one, which is Grand Delusions, which taking damage has a chance to summon a thing from beyond, which pursues you for 10 seconds. Its speed increases with further corruption. I don't actually know what this does. I haven't like procced it yet. I was trying to damage myself. I couldn't proc it. But looking at what it can happen on Wowhead, it looks like the guy, when it hits you, it just does your full HP and damage. So, you know, you either kite him for 10 seconds or you get hit, but you use the defensive so you don't die. Next one is Creeping Death. Basically, if you reach this level of corruption, you're going to die on any fight. It's going to increase your damage taken, and it's going to reduce your healing received. So it kind of double dips, right? So like basically for every 100 damage you take, you're taking extra, let's say right here, 60% damage. And on top of that, that now like 160 damage is now 60% harder to heal. So you definitely never want to reach that. I think right now, if you reach Creeping Death, you know, you're basically screwed, right? Unless there's some other mechanic that can like immune it, for example. Speaking of mechanics that can immune it, one of the things that you can get with patch 8.3 is this new legendary Cloak. Right now, it says reduces sanity loss from all sources. It does seem like Blizzard is going to be changing this to also include some type of corruption reduction mechanic on the legendary Cloak, as according to their notes. So it's also possible that this might reduce corruption. Another way that you can reduce corruption is the introduction of 3 of the new Astra Essences that you're going to get with 8.3, Breath of the Undying, Spark of Inspiration, and the Formless Void. And we can get to them in a second, but all 3 of them have a minor effect on there, which reduces corruption by 10. Right now, it doesn't matter what level you are or what rank you are. Rank 1, 2, and 3, they all reduce it by 10, right? So it doesn't matter for that end. Not only that, it doesn't even work on the PTR, so it doesn't even matter, right? If I put it on, it actually doesn't reduce my corruption, so I can't really show you what that's like, right? I'm kind of curious if your corruption can be brought so low that you can get rid of grasping tendrils, or does it just auto-activate, you know, regardless of your corruption at levels, even if your corruption was higher than 0, right? Because you have this thing, or even if your corruption is at 0, right? Can you still get it even if you just wear 1 gear? We can't tell right now because the essences are broken; they don't really work. So yeah. But as far as for like how strong they actually are and kind of what the 3 of them actually do, they do seem pretty valuable, and you can definitely see uses for all 3 of them. So first off, I'm looking at rank 3s, that way you guys can see like the final value of these, right? Token of Death Glee. So this basically, you activate it and it hits your target for a lot of damage. It gives you a lower cooldown if you use it when your target is above 80% or if they're below 20%. And if it kills the enemy, it instantly resets and deal 100% increased damage on its next use. Seems like it might be kind of OP on any fights with ads or Mythic Plus, because if you can use it to kill the ad, you can use it then to kill another ad right away, and then it just keeps that increasing damage, right? I don't think it scales though. I'm pretty sure like once it does the additional 100% increase, like that second increased damage, that's the same. Like I don't think it keeps infinitely scaling 100%, because if it does keep scaling 100%, then it's too OP, right? Like it would get insane in Mythic Plus where you walk up to the last boss and you one-shot it, right? So I don't think that's gonna happen. As far as for the minor power on here, what's important here to note is that if your target is below 20% health, the chance for the extra damage is increased by 400%. Now, you might look at this initially and go, oh, that's really good. We're good at execute. This is good at execute. Actually, no. This thing probably nerfs any execute classes, right? Because any DPS class can pick this up. So they're going to execute the boss for more, which means you're going to have less time executing the bosses. So this Azurite Essence might actually serve as a slight nerf to any execute classes, right? Because it'll allow everybody else to execute, shortening the window of the actual execute phase. Next one, we have Quickening Azerite Geode. Release a wave of energy from your Heart of Azeroth, increasing damage of all party members within 15 yards. Deal with Azerite Essences by 45% and their speed by whatever 20 seconds, right? This is really good because even if you don't have any like way of reducing the cooldown on this, it's a 1 minute cooldown, it lasts 20 seconds. Basically, you just need 3 people in your raid, use it on a rotation, and you will have a permanent 45% damage increase on all Azerite Essences, right? And you can have your tanks and healers wear this. Like, you don't even have to sacrifice the DPS for this. So this seems pretty strong, and it seems like you're gonna need your raid to wear this, right? Especially in a 20-man raid setting. Minor power, your spells and abilities have a chance to increase you and 2 other allies' haste by 153 and reduce the cooldown of you and 2 other allies currently slotted major essence by 1 second. Once again, pretty OP, right? Now, maybe instead of just like 2 tanks and a healer wearing this, now you maybe have all of your tanks and all of your healers wear this because they can proc that shit on all the DPS around them, right? So, it might be kind of OP. And it might make healers and tanks really not like it because they're going to take something that doesn't benefit themselves that much, but it is better for the group maybe. The next one is this one, Volatile Void Droplet. Replicate the energy in your target's Heart of Azeroth, gaining access to ring 3 of their currently stored major essence for the next 15 seconds. The formless void will go on cooldown for 30% longer than the base cooldown of the essence you replicated. This does not work on passive essences. Basically, what this does is it allows you to steal somebody else's essence. The best use case here isn't stealing somebody that has your current one. Maybe in PvP you could, but really the best use here is, let's say for a tank, to steal a DPS one or a healer to take a DPS one. That way you can have 5 in a Mythic Plus, for example. You can have 5 different DPS affixes, or in a raid, like maybe, you know, this one we talked about, maybe it sucks or something. With this, you can actually have all 20 people using like a DPS essence, right? That could be pretty big. Minor power, each time an ally within 40 yards uses an Astra Essence, gain strength and haste for 20 seconds. That minor power looks OP as fuck for everybody because when you have stuff on pull where everybody uses their Astra Essence at the exact same time, I'm pretty sure it stacks. You're gonna get a pretty huge buff while you're also bursting on your opener. So this seems kind of OP. And because of these 3 essences all giving you that 10 corruption reduction, I'm fairly confident you're going to end up using 1 of the 3 no matter what, right? Because you're going to want that 10 corruption reduction, right? That doesn't appear on any of the older essences, right? On top of that, another thing that you're going to get with the new essence system is that at Heart of Azeroth level 80, you're going to unlock another minor slot, and that's probably we're going to slot in 1 of those 3, right? It's probably the goal is going to be, right, you're going to make sure you hit, you're at 70 as right now, right? That's the cap. You want to make sure you hit 70 before 8.3 launches. Once 8.3 launches, you're going to race to minor level 80 as fast as you can, right? Maybe you don't hit it in Heroic Week, that's fine. I think the goal for every raider, at least Mythic Raiders, is going to be to hit 80 before the Mythic Week, and then you can be OP, right? But so that's kind of like right now the essences and kind of all the gear, kind of all that, how that syncs up. Now we can quickly talk about the raid really quick, right? There's gonna be 12 bosses in the raid. It's gonna be a big raid. Luckily, there is at least 1 confirmed raid skip, which is good. That means, you know, when on your re-kills, once you're done with the content, you don't have to kill all 12 bosses, do all this stuff, but we can kind of understand why that there's going to be 12 bosses just from a loot perspective, right? Now that you can't Warforge and Titanforge gear, right? The only way you're going to get basically the best items in the game are mostly going to come from Mythic raiding. So, right, you're going to have to raid to get the best loot. Now, there might still be some items that exist where you might want it from other content that's slightly better, but very likely a lot of your best in slot is going to come from here, with the exception of course your Azerite pieces, since those can come from Mythic Plus or PvP, and since those can't be corrupted, doesn't really matter where you get them. And then of course the other thing that also comes out with every new season is the new Mythic Plus affix, right? In season 4, it's going to be the corrupted affix, not to be confused with the corruption system, which upgrades your gear. The corrupted affix will now basically have, I guess, these like portals you can click on while you're in a Mythic Plus you drop down on them. Very similar to Zokul, how on Zokul you can take that portal to go downstairs, and then there's ads down there. You can kill the ads, and then you can take any of the 3 portals, come back up, and wherever you took the portal, come back up, that's where you come back up. That's actually the exact mechanic as it's described. I've seen it. I haven't seen it yet, but when I read the description of the mechanic, that's literally what it does, right? Think about Zokul, think about when you enter the realm downstairs, and then when you come up. Not the one where you soak to go downstairs, but the one where you click the portal to go downstairs, right? So the use for that, I think the reason for that is Blizzard probably understands that, you know, having a rogue right now in higher Mythic Plus or even lower Mythic Plus if you don't want to try too hard, right? Shroud is too valuable. Basically, this affix allows you to Shroud, right? Because what you do is you go downstairs, you take the portal, you go downstairs. So when you kill the ad, I guess it'll spawn a portal next to you. So basically, you drag that ad to wherever you want to end up being when you come back up. Kill the ad, portal spawns next to you, you come back up, and then you skip all the trash that you just walk past, right? And it seems like it might be a tunnel system. Like once you establish where the portals are, they should stay there. But we'll kind of see as season 4 approaches how that exactly works out. But I mean, I don't know if that's actually going to make it better or worse because, I mean, you know, what's better than 1 shroud? Having 2 shrouds, right? So what's better than having the portal and having a shroud? So we'll see how that works out because especially, you know, when season 4 comes out, guess what? That means season 3 mechanics are gone, right? So all those little dudes that are walking around that are like seeing the rogues right now, all those like 3 different things, they're going to be gone too. So we'll see how that works out. And then of course there's been some class changes, mainly in nerfs multi-daughters like Shadow Priest and Boomies. No changes for warriors, but of course since the warriors start with the letter W and were last in the alphabet, I think for recently in the past 2 expansions, at least that I've noticed, is that any warrior changes gets put on last because it really seems like they do it in alphabetical order. So we'll see what happens to warriors. Currently there's no changes to us. That's actually good because, I mean, maybe arms gets buffed, but the chances that Fury gets buffed is basically 0. So don't expect any Fury buffs, but just be glad that there's no nerfs, right? I think that's all we can hope for right now. And then of course there's 2 new allied races, Volpira and Mechanomes. Volpira for Horde, Mechanomes for Alliance. So now you can be a Fury warrior if you wanted to. I think it's even better than Worgen because Worgens, they can go back to human in that form. They're not really fully committed, but if you play Volpira, you're fully committed. So definitely feel free to check that out when that comes out. And yeah, I don't know if the corruption thing is going to be a fix or anything. From the onset, and I think from everybody's reaction, it feels bad, right? Like, I don't think the corruption mechanic is fun. I think the corruption upgrade system will have the exact same effect that seasonal affixes have for Mythic Plus. It just adds another layer of difficulty that's not really fun, right? Because, you know, any piece right now of corruption gear you put on gives you grasping tendrils, even if you reduce your corruption to 0. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? Like, there's actually no way for you to not get a negative effect. And it just feels shitty because then basically the entire time you have to play with this hamstring, right? Literally it's a hamstring because it slows you. So it's going to feel shitty. And I don't think people really like it. And I don't think Blizzard fully understood what the exact issues of the current Warforging and Titanforging system is right now. And I think there were much easier ways to go about this, right? One is, okay, the sockets on gear, that was a problem because now you have sockets that are worth more than like 25 eye levels on a ring, right? So that's a problem, right? They need to kind of balance out gear that doesn't have your main stat, like your rings, to have some type of more value there, right? Maybe make secondary stats scale even better on rings, so that way the sockets aren't as oppressive. Maybe they just don't even Titanforge. Like, why can't we just go to Warforge? If you have the Warforge, then you won't have the problem where, you know, gear from previous difficulty will be better, right? Because Warforging can only go up 10 eye levels. How high does eye levels jump when you go in difficulties? 15, right? So even if you got the maximum Warforge, you cannot beat the next level in gear anyways. The only problem right now is corruption. Not only is it RNG in that, you know, first you have to get it, then you have to get the right thing, right? Because now you want crit damage. Not only that, right now there's actually a range of that corruption value. They might remove that. They might make it so it's not a range. But you see how it says 24 corruption? Yeah, that corruption might be like 23, 22, right? that there's actually a range that it can roll. It's similar with the beneficial one, but the beneficial one, there's like a 2 ranges. Beneficial one has a 3 range. Within the beneficial one, the corruption has a different range. So there's like so many different variables that can happen just based on this one mechanic alone. It's actually insane. I know they want you to keep playing the game because you want to get that perfect gear, but it is insane, especially, right? Because now that the best in slot gear is going to come from the raid, you actually can't even grind it, right? You like, yes, you can go into Mythic Plus and you can get some gear, but the eye level won't be close at all. So right now, if you actually can't Warforge or Titanforge your gear in season 4, I actually don't know why you would keep doing Mythic Plus, other than pushing, right? Yes, you can of course push your score as high as you can, but as far as for gearing wise, I actually don't know why you would do Mythic Plus anymore, right? You just do 1 for the week and you're done, right? Because spamming it, like once you're actually geared, like spamming it for extra upgrades won't actually happen, right? Because the eye level that you're gonna get in Mythic Plus right now is gonna be so low compared to Mythic rating. I don't understand right now why you would do it. But let me know what you guys think about the corruption system, any of the other stuff that's coming out in 8.3. As always, thanks for checking out the video, guys. Feel free to subscribe to see more. See ya.